measuring trust. And it's this idea of trust, of who we trust and why we trust. Which, to bring it back to Twitch, if you click on a stream, if you're watching a streamer, what are the characteristics that encourage you to trust them? What are the things that allow you to not only enjoy the stream, but decide that you're going to listen to them, decide that you're going to believe them? Now, that might be trust around recommending a video game. That might be trust around recommending another streamer. And I actually find the issue of trust quite fascinating in the context of electrical longboard. Because if you think about it, electrical longboard is a network of trust. That the people we meet in ELB raids, we're more likely to trust them because we met them as a result of the ELB network. And I experienced this myself a couple of days ago when I went and followed Mad Mods for You. And I was watching Mad Mods for You. He was doing a trucking simulator. And he mentioned that he followed me in my channel because he said, well, if ELB trusts you, well, then I trust you. And it was an interesting example of how we transfer trust that way, how our social relationships and our social capital allows us to foster that kind of trust. And, Moobot is kind of joking, well, what if it's a bot? And I think we can trust bots as well, that a well-trusted bot who provides a recommendation might be the equivalent of a well-trusted human being. But my point about electric longboard is it's the network that we trust. And because we end up trusting the network, we transfer that trust amidst other people who participate in the ELB network as a whole. So I think the relationship between trust and technology is essential. And it's something that we should interrogate. It's something that we should be constantly talking about and thinking about so that we can both recognize when we shouldn't trust somebody, when something's a scam, but also to be more aware about why people trust us. And to think about the types of things that we can do as streamers to earn people's trust, to maintain that trust. So this time of year, I always like to do an episode or a newsletter about the Edelman Trust Barometer. And the Edelman Trust Barometer is an opinion survey. It's a piece of research that the Edelman PR firm, and it's one of the world's largest public relations firms, it's something that they do every year to measure people's trust in society, to measure people's trust in institutions. And so let's read their introductory paragraph. After a year of unprecedented disaster and turbulence, the COVID-19 pandemic and economic crisis, the global outcry over systemic racism and political instability, the 2021 Edelman Trust Barometer reveals an epidemic of misinformation and widespread mistrust of societal institutions and leaders around the world. Adding to this is a failing trust ecosystem, unable to confront the rampant infodemic leaving the four institutions, business, government, NGOs, and media in an environment of information bankruptcy and a mandate to rebuild trust and chart a new path forward. Now that's one of the reasons why I really like the Edelman Trust Barometer, because I've been saying all year that this pandemic has completely devastated the foundations of trust that our institutions and governments are built on. But when I say it, I'm just some cyberpunk on Twitch saying it. But when Edelman says it, they've got years of public opinion research backing it up. And it very much articulates the crisis of trust that governments and institutions are currently going through. So they go on in terms of some of the research and some of the dips, right? And this is one of the benefits of, because they do this year after year, they can chart this. So for example, this trust declines in the world's two largest economies. They show that from May 2020 to 2021 in China, trust declined 18%. In the United States, in that same period, trust declined. It's annoying the way this keeps repeating. Only 5%, but trust was already pretty low in the United States. They pointed out that the trust bubble burst, that trust initially went up when the pandemic started, but has since continued to decline as a result. They call this a crisis of leadership. And they talk about raging infodemic feeds mistrust. That because there's so much misinformation, that they claim that that is what is breeding this culture of mistrust. They argue that poor information hygiene threatens the pandemic recovery. And they point out that it's high stakes for business. And the reason that they like to emphasize that it's high stake for business is those are their clients. Those are the people who hire them. So if they tell that these business guys, have an opportunity or have a crisis of trust, they're hoping that that's why they will hire Edelman. Now, I think in the MetaViews newsletter, we will probably break down some of these results. But I just wanted to push back a little here that Edelman is arguing that misinformation breeds trust, and I'm not convinced. I think, as per usual, incompetence breeds trust. Disappointment breeds trust. I know for me personally, I feel let down and disappointed by every institution in my life. Every institution that I deal with, that I interface with, I feel they fucked up. I feel that like they completely let me down, that they were not there for me, that they were an utter disappointment. It's not misinformation that's breeding trust. It's incompetence, right? It's the inability of institutions to respond and to be there for me, for us during this crisis. That's why this trust is declining. So I appreciate that Edelman measure these things, but I think that they are self-serving when they try to say that the reason is misinformation. No, the reason is because institutions are failing us. Period. Point blank. That's my analysis. As always, I'm curious to hear what you guys think.